Jiandyin Collective is a collaborative interdisciplinary duo of artists and curators, Pornpillai Mimalai and Jirdej Milamai, who currently live and work in Ratchaburi, Thailand. Jiandyin's artistic practice revolves around artistic research, fieldwork, and the integration of multiple sources and evidence. Their aim is to create spaces or platforms that allow for the analysis of relationships between individuals and society within the specific context and history of a particular place or space. Ravi has an interdisciplinary practice as an artist, writer, curator, and environmental campaigner. His research-based work mediates art and activism to address the entangled questions of nature and its futures using photography, video, text, and installation. Ravi is also the founder and director of the environmental NGO Toxics Link, based in New Delhi, and the Shiyama Foundation's Shared Ecologies program, which supports emerging initiatives at the intersection of art and ecology in India. Caroline Ha Thuc is an independent art writer, researcher, and lecturer and curator. She holds a PhD from the School of Creative Media, City University, Hong Kong. Specialized in Asian contemporary art, her field of research focuses on research-based art practices and the emergence of alternative modes of knowledge production in Asia. I'm going to pass over to Caroline now, who's going to introduce the talk's themes and who's going to be moderating the talk between the two artists as well. I think you are still on mute, Caroline.
Okay, hi. Sorry, thank you, Ha. Very nice to have you all here. Thank you for joining this online conversation. I'm very happy to have Ji and Yin and Ravi with me. First, I will let the artists introduce their artworks created for the exhibition. And together we can explore their work methodologies and their engagement with different communities. In that case, cocoa growers in India and in Thailand. And from there, we can delve further into each artist's practice, focusing on their social dimension and fieldwork, and on how it impacts their artistic creation. We can also discuss the terminology, how maybe to describe what we usually call socially engaged practices. Perhaps we can together think about more relevant terms to describe these community-based approaches or dialogical art. I'm also very much interested in understanding the challenges the artists are facing when working on site, the ethical questions they may have, especially when it comes to empowering other people, and the strategies they have chosen to reflect on these communities. But perhaps just before we start, just to give you a little bit of context about the exhibition, which is called In Stranger Lands, Asia, Cocoa Journeys to Asia. So it's an exhibition that has been conceived as a collective and artistic research project that aims at exploring Asian cocoa from a cross-disciplinary perspective. So all the feature artworks have been commissioned for the project, and they are the result of the artist's own investigations into cocoa and chocolate. So as such, each artist is somehow contributing to generate a form of knowledge about this topic, approach from, of course, their own artistic perspective and their own local context. And in fact, not all, but many artists drew their inspiration from their fieldwork experiences, meeting cocoa growers, local chocolate makers. So Ravi, for instance, visited cacao growing regions in the South India with the aim of understanding the alternative model of development implemented by smaller independent cocoa producers. And I think for Ravi, but you will tell us more about that, the issue of labor is very important because it involves transformation of nature, but also the exploitation of resources and of people. And in parallel with Ji and Yin, they have investigated a specific cocoa farm located in Prachuap Khiri Khan province of Thailand. And they met and discussed with one cocoa grower. His name is Go Niaw. He's a Thai Buddhist citizen who has been growing cocoa since after his crops were wrecked by a typhoon in 1999. So I'm gonna leave the artist describe their own work before diving into their work methodology and engagement with communities. So maybe we can start with Thailand. So with Ji and Yin, if you are ready. Thank you. And you are mute, Ji.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Yeah.
Hello,
we are
everyone.
very glad to join this presentation. So, yeah, our work title is The Space and Time, establishing the history of stories. So, yeah, in the beginning, we received the subject about the chocolate, and so we look around and also made some research, and we found a place where we would like to focus, which is a cocoa farm of Go Niaw. So I'm going to share our screen to show you. So let me try again. It looks like it's okay. It's working now. So yeah, as we introduce about the work, we are research-based artists. อันนี้คือพูดเรื่องรวมๆก่อน so that after we made the research, we found that what is interesting about cocoa history in Thailand, we found a very interesting starting point when we found the history, how the cocoa plantation started, with the impact from a strong typhoon in 1989. And so we looked around, and then we found that the specific location that we focused was at the Bang Sapan Prachuap Khiri Khan. So that is where one of the pioneer of cocoa plantation farmer start. His name is Go Niaw. So here's the image of the field research when we went down there, and this is his farm, Go Niaw's farm, and we spend pretty much time with him, and we went back also to interview him about his life. And then what was very interesting for us is the story behind about his life. Just one moment. Think that we can. So yeah, what was the impact during our research was the life of Go Niaw behind his success in the cocoa plantation.
I think this is kind of coincidentally. So we didn't expect that we're gonna have some story that have never told. So, but basically, as you know, Thailand is very young for cocoa plantation. On the historical that we couldn't find any evidence. It's just like one sentence was bring the cocoa by the Spanish and the Dutch during the Ayutthaya period. In the years between late 16th century, that was written a very short sentence about the cocoa that the lower court has been taste a cocoa at that time, but it's not really like confirmed or any evidence about that. And after the actually it's doing the I mean like before typhoon hit the areas where is between middle of Thailand and south of Thailand. When the typhoon hit the area, so the government was planned to give the cocoa tree to the farmer unless the typhoon gone. So the about 300 farmers who were had coffee,
who have been growing
coffee from coconut farm and
palms.
palm farm. They try to learn about the new plantation that government tried to introduce. So those 300 people include Go Niaw. And then within about for 3 years, Go Niaw find out that a cocoa plantation was going well. And after 3 years, he told us that the fruit of the cacao increased the number of the fruit like 3 times after 3 years.
Even, I mean, comparing to the coffee and palms,
Yeah, and after 3 years, he decided to chop down all the coffee
plants.
plant and extend the cocoa, the cacao. Mm. And doing go back and forth to talk to him about his farm. And suddenly one day, he told about his life story before he come to plant a cacao. So the story behind it was very excited and was about why he come here to become
A
farmer,
cocoa farmer.
a cacao farmer. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
So he explained about his life in Siberia, and then also the way the shift of his life from being a watch repairer and then became a cocoa farmer at the age of 42. Also, the way that he moved his life from Siberia to Prachuap Khiri Khan. Siberia is in Pattani of Thailand.
Yeah, it's one of district in Pattani, the southern of Thailand. So yeah, we are very curious that because the wash repair
Practice.
practice,
Yeah.
which gave him a lot of money, and of course he was quite rich when he were there, but he threw everything away and run away from Siberia to Prachuap Khiri Khan within suddenly like to decided to leave and leave everything behind and come to Siberia for planning only 5 days. It was very shock for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we thought about this layer of the space and time about his life. So that's why we were thinking about how a person carries so much fragility and also the story behind a person and his the changing of his life is something that we would like to address through this cocoa plantation. So we would like to so that we decided to present the fragility of the space and time of a person. And during the time we also kind of research in depth about the deep south of Thailand, deep south provinces, which has a lot of the violence and also the crackdowns and also the bombings and between the state and the separatist there
group.
Yeah. And so the violence that occur in the deep south of Thailand are the stories from the past of Go Niaw that we think that it's a very intense in one person's life, and not only for him but also the people there, and so that's why we kind of create this a LiDAR laser scan image, and as well as the aerial exploration of of his land. In terms of the to achieve certain the geographical visual effect that we would like to use it in the story behind of Go Niaw. And so this is part of the work that we created. The image of the laser scan in a 3D video, and you see the numbers of the location. We layer with the latitude and longitude position of the violent incidents that we have collected that influence his life to twist and change himself to be a farmer. So also in parallel, we have this drone exploration shot that also include in our video work. This is one of his farmer that worked with him for a period of time, and so this image they merge into one in our video work. So this is the structure behind the idea of the work. So the LiDAR laser scan address the space and time of a person, and along the space and time, it actually includes the history, the narratives of a person, and these are the physical constraints, and also transform a person's life from the past to future. So that's why we have this sliding moving of the piercing cracks image on the LiDAR scan of Go Niaw's land. So this is a total land of his cocoa plantation in the Bangsapan. Actually, he's one of his land that he owns nowadays. And
so let me add something. I think for us, the LiDAR is a metaphor that the technologies can scan not only the geography that he was growing up his life with the cacao, but the LiDAR itself, metaphor, the scanning into two acts, which one is the vertical and the horizontal. So after all, we got the
connectedness, yeah,
the connecting point between vertical and horizontal. So the point that these two acts met, which is the spot that it was the pain point that he has been told us. Yeah, because in his story, he has been noted by the separatisms to ask for money. They came to his house. They came to his shop.
Like a protection fee.
To the protection fee.
Mhm.
And he told that 10 of his friends who was kidnapped,
Mhm.
and of course to ask for the money.
Mhm.
And 2 of his friends who has been kidnapped now moved to grow a cacao nearby his farm.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think for us, the LiDAR technology is not only telling the layers, the one layers that we can see on the video, but is can tell something behind. And when we use the LiDAR image, moving image, we add some programs to generate the LiDAR and
Also
try
the
to
twisting and also to sliding the image.
Yes,
Mm.
yes, this is super interesting. Sorry to interrupt. Maybe we can delve further later. But I think that's quite interesting to see how you've been using this LiDAR to expand actually the research field and to link geology with geopolitics, all together with this life of this cocoa grower. I think what is very interesting here, and we can discuss this later, is also how we think about the community, if we think about socially engaged practices, because in your case, you are showing that we cannot isolate the social from a larger context, and that obviously when we think about community, we need to think about history, we need to think about geology, and I mean all these fields and all these influences, of course, have to be taken into consideration. But let me maybe first give Ravi the time to also present his artwork, and we can come back and discuss further about how you have been experimenting this way to reflect on this very specific situation. So Ravi, if you are ready, you can, yes, share a bit more about your artwork. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline, and thank you for inviting me for this and for the exhibition as well, for inviting me to do the work. It was very interesting. So I want to speak a bit about my approach to the project of cacao, and also a bit about my practice in general. So I can do them in two separate parts. I can speak about the cacao project right now, and then maybe at a later question I can speak about my broader practice. Is that fine?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So when you unfortunately I don't have images of my cacao project here right now, but when you invited me to think of the history of cacao, my approach was to think of cacao as how it came to South Asia, how it came to India. And because it's a very recent addition, it's because cacao is not really on the palate of India. People don't the food doesn't include a taste like cacao in any kind of form. So it was introduced rather recently in the 1950s by Cadbury's. And all cacao farming was because Cadbury was buying all the cacaos, which they then they were because they wanted to make chocolate, and chocolate became the way in which cacao got introduced into India. And there was an attempt in the early 19th century by the British to also introduce cacao into India. but that nearly did not find any progress, because at that time chocolate was not really very high. It wasn't, it's still under many processing. So as I do, I'm interested in how plants and are extracted from ecosystems, and how they change their meaning once they're extracted. So cacao too, it's got such a long 5,000-year-old history from South America, and it was only then came in the 19th century by the Spanish through the Aztec into Spain. And what was really interesting for me was how cacao was part of, as firstly it was a drink which it was a commodity, or it was a plant which had a lot of value to it, in terms of it was almost used like currency in many places, in the Mayan and the Aztec cultures. But then it was very much a health drink. So it was part of the ritual of well-being and health, and it was drunk completely bitter as a molten cacao. It's only when it comes to Spain that it starts transforming as an extracted commodity, and it's very hard to find now the relationship between cacao and its ecosystem. So cacao as a plant grew in South America in a particular belt. But what were the other plants growing around it? What was its relationship to other plants? I'm very interested in what is the ecosystem through which these plants exist. Because of course we know cacao because it found a certain value when it came to Europe, but also then there must have been other plants there which maybe did not find the same value. So how this becomes a commodity, and through the commodification, through the processes in Europe, which was including removing of the butter, the technology to remove the butter, and then to add milk, and then to add sugar, it became something else. Became a commodity which earlier was about masculinity, about strength, virility, but about sensuality. So I started looking at all the earlier advertisements from these big companies, how it was being marketed. It's marketed always as a sensuous drink or a drink for the armed forces. And it's very interesting how this cacao became from a health drink, something to a commodity which was about sensuality and about virility. And this transformation is completely how the commodification happens, and it enters India in the 50s with this transformative potential in mind. So Cadbury, of course, has been the longest and the biggest market share in India. And I was also very interested in how cacao is now being outside of Cadbury's being made. And there are a number of at least 5 or 6 major initiatives which are both what they call tree to bark or bar to bark. The difference being that some of these initiatives grow the cacao as well as make the chocolate, or use cacao in one kind of boutique way or another, or they are bean to bar, which means they buy the beans from another supplier. And so there are not so many, but there are a few of these which are trying to see how the cacao can be made in a non-commercial, but in all its qualitative ways. Because what happens in the commercial productions of large companies that cacao is completely fully roasted, so the quality does not matter, and then all the butter is extracted and re-put inside. So if you go, right now it's 44 degrees in Delhi. If you go to a store in Delhi, you can buy a chocolate which will not melt. So because all the butter has probably been replaced by something else, so it will not melt. It's amazing how chocolate will not melt. It will be sold in discounters on the street, in a sense. So this is obviously things have been done to this chocolate to make it marketable in all kinds of weather. Whereas when I visited the farms, I both visited processing units, but as well as farms. So it grows in a certain kind of climate in India, in South India, where it's kind of mimics the climate of Cote d'Ivoire in Africa or in South America, because Cote d'Ivoire is one of the largest suppliers of cacao in the world now. And you see that these are tropical climates. They're tropical, and they're growing. The trees are grown in association with other trees, maybe palm trees, in the shadow of these trees. And it was very interesting to see how these boutique manufacturers who are trying to revive the full quality of cacao, how much care they take in first fermenting the beans, and then sorting the beans, and then extracting the butter and reintroducing it. So you can get all these boutique cacao chocolates now, or you can go to a cacao bar in, say, a place like Mumbai, and you can have cacao in its various forms. You can also drink pure cacao, which I also did. So this whole transformation made sense now because cacao has now entered India in this form as a kind of niche market, because you will not find a villager having any use for cacao. It's not part of the natural landscape. It's completely exotic to the Indian palate in that sense. So this kind of globalization of both taste and of shift in the original ecology and the use of the plant, to me, was something which the kind of approach I have, that this is sort of, we are living in the height of extractivism, in a sense, where everything is commodified. And so the work I did was, of course, I did interviews with these young entrepreneurs who are doing cacao farming. And I also talked to them about the kind of fair trade practices they follow, because that's really important to me. That how the wage is paid, what happens to the labor conditions, how fair are these trades, because they claim fair trade in a sense. And so I asked all these questions in the interview also, which was part of the project. All these questions are addressed. But I was also trying to see in the work, which was sort of kind of different than what I normally do. It's a photo collage based work. I was trying to see the complex histories through which we are implicated. One of the constant thoughts I had in my mind because this work is also kind of performatory, I also use performance as part of the images. One of the things which I found was very important for me was that the colonization of nature continues even today. It's not that because now that I'm not implicated. So because the way cacao is now marketed, it's a continuing colonization of nature, because we've lost the original ecosystem through which cacao is made. So it is also the fact that it's not saying that we are victims of colonization, but in the question of nature, we continue to be the colonizers. And this is part of the imagery which I sought to image, the 6 images which I sought to create, were actually trying to look at these complexities and entanglements between these various histories and ethical implications. And I call the work also, in that way of redemption, so because the performatory performance which I do, and which is then photoed into the collages, is the traditional homage you pay in Indian tradition, in a Hindu tradition. When you are praying, you have this lamp homage you're paying. And I felt that we have to take ownership of this colonization, because we continue with this colonization. So all these complex thoughts were something which were part of my approach to the project, and so this is what I ended up, because when I start doing research, I don't know what I will produce in the end. I'm researching, I'm seeing, I'm visiting, and then the trajectories have to appear to me, and then I follow that trajectory, which then appears to me in that sense, which is sort of the process I follow for myself.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think you said it's very complex, and I guess it is what is very challenging for each context, right? Because as we have seen when you've been approaching, I mean, in your case, these cocoa growers, and in the case of Jiandyin, the family of Go Niaw, you had to delve into, I mean, much further into history of taste, trade, colonization, even religious tensions, geopolitics, anthropology, and collective imaginary. So it could be easy, or it could feel easy for you as an artist to feel overwhelmed by all these layers. And it's actually quite interesting to see that in both cases, you've been addressing these layers in a way or another, because through the LiDAR, of course, it's about showing these different geological layers. But in the case of Ravi, photo collage, it's also a kind of accumulation of images. So maybe for both of you, it was a way to reflect on all this of this complexity, right? And I also noticed that in both cases, there is a kind of distance with your subject. Maybe it's more easy in the case of Ravi, because you have, I mean, in the exhibition space, there is one table where you have displayed some photographs that are documenting actually what you have done in South India. So they are really like documenting images, very objective in a way, if I may. And then there is this, I mean, the artwork per se. But we don't see the cocoa grower into the artwork, or and there is like a quite clear separation. But like maybe in the case of Go Niaw, it's more complicated. As you said, he went through very difficult times, and he shared with you actually his personal story. So how to reflect on this without exposing him too much? So maybe Jiandyin, you can tell us about your strategy regarding this challenge. You just need to unmute yourself. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, usually I think we work as a artist, journalist, and investigator at the same times. So the main methodology is to collecting database. The database can be collected through textbooks, online information, or connecting to specific people, interviewing. Sometimes we also work with local journalists and specialists in certain fields. So yeah, searching for targets is at the end of, I mean, after all the research process, we need to search for target who we should work with, or the source. Yeah, how can we reach to the source, to meet and to talk, and to also, what is important is to create the trust, which is which needs time. And I mean, also after a period of time, then how can we request the participation? How can we convince our source to coordinate? So most of the time it's not about what we want, right? It's about the possibility between the source, possibility between the source and the artist.
So basically, I think we open for the source that what they want to say is not the ways that an artist to dominate the source that to ask what we want, but most of the time the work is developing with the source, which means most of our projects that source was very important, because even we have an idea before we met them or we met he or her. So when we are there to confront with the source, so the ideas that what the information that they're told is become an awareness that we bring it out to become an
certain idea
mhm,
how to move forward. Yeah,
mhm,
I think there are things that quite common after I heard Ravi, because often we don't have an exact plan. Yes, we did have plan, yeah, but we don't put it like something that cannot be moved. Yeah.
mhm.
So I'm not sure if we have answered the
Maybe
question.
this is why we can talk about dialogical art. I don't know if you agree with that terminology. And like in the case of this specific artwork, for instance, how did it happen, and maybe how you progressively managed to include Go Niaw into your conversation, and how maybe his story altogether, I mean, influenced the way you've been working.
Mhm.
Yeah,
For this case,
for Go Niaw, yeah. It actually took a few times after we called him. I mean, before we called him, we actually kind of investigate other farms, and also the information about the chocolate shops and whatever. I mean, the market and whatever, and other farmers. And then, yeah, it came to Go Niaw after we talked to him. Yeah.
for me, I think in Go Niaw case, as I told, it was and coincidentally. So actually, we went there. We went to his farm just to know about how to plant the cacao and how he operate or organize his farm to become an important one, because his farm is not just a farm, but he opened his farm to be a learning
center.
for the farmer of Thailand farmer who want to grow a cacao to come and study. So I think as an artist, we were as same as other students who come to his farm to learn and to listen and to get the information that how he become a number one of a cacao farm in Thailand. So yeah, in this case, especially for Go Niaw, the storytelling is come later after we have an information about his plantation. But during the talk, the conversations, the dialogues come later and giving more and more
deeper information
into his life. That was in attacks to our mentor, that what was happened to him. And of course, we are not really push him that about his pain point from his past to tell us right away. So we come back to the studio, and we come and we discuss each other, and we plan that, okay, next time we will go back to meet him again. And of course, we bring some souvenir or flute or something to him. And then when we met him again, we start to ask about
the history.
Yeah, that.
And then it went to a wider perspective about the history, and the cross culture, and the crash of the incidents in the south. So that's how it went.
Yeah, basically, for me, I has been study about the deep south provinces for a period of time before I heard the story from Go Niaw. So, but when I hear the story, I can kind of arrange the information with the database, and is become very important that his story can tell the wider perspective, and the situation that what happened in the areas where he used to live. And this situations of the separatism is still remains today, since the Ayutthaya period, which was like 400 years ago. Yeah, and it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it's about, of course, digging into the local to explore the global. So it gives, like, it's an entry point. But then, I mean, did you show him the work? Was he like satisfied by the fact that you were approaching his, what he's doing now, his cocoa activity, by linking it to this contextual situation?
Yeah, not just, yeah, because the work is not finished, like completely finished. But what we know is, like, we ask him a permission that can we record his voices to tell his story. Yeah, it's from the beginning, when he was born, how many member in his family, and what his education, and when does she married, and yes, all the story about his life doing his as a young man who opened the repair the watch repair shop in Sai Buli,
before he came to be a cocoa plantation farmer.
I see. So it's a way to give him, to give him a voice and to let him express himself directly through recording. But I think, okay, maybe we can hear a bit from Ravi's perspective, because I guess, Ravi, you have a long experience of field work and different projects in which you have been trying to empower different types of community. You had this very long research on migrants, but you have also worked with fishermen in the south of India. So each time you've been facing these type of challenges. So maybe you can share a bit more about your experience from this topic.
Yeah, so I think for me, working with a community, it doesn't start out as work. It starts like a kind of curiosity, trying to learn, trying to understand something better. So what emerges as what you might call an art practice is integrated or subsequent or part of it, but it's not the primary motive is not to do that. So over time, the questions, like I've worked with labor, I worked with small farmers, I worked with fishers. I've also worked with, more than human on issues of, as you know, I just told you earlier on dolphins, the near extinct and the extinction of ants. So I think of communities in relationship, people in relationship to both historically, but also spatially in terms of where they are and what their connections are. And I'm really interested in how people are in relationship with, always in relationship with their past, their future, and also their surroundings in a sense. And and how these connections break down, and then we come to a different situation. So my investigations are dealt like through my nose in a sense. So the work with migrant labor was over 2.5 to 3 years. The work with small fishers was also over 2 years. Small farmers was 2 years, and the work with fishers was over four years. And and many of them I have maintained contact with, and so I think for me they're not subjects, but they are ways to learn something from. So I always go there because I want to learn something from them about their condition, but also about the human condition and how I can think differently than the learned categories through which I've been told. So when I was working with migrant labor, you go there thinking, okay, these are poor people. Now, this category of poor people itself is a problem for me, because then you say these are just poor people. So, of course, they're economically not as well off as some other people might be, but they're not poor by any circumstance, by any way. They're struggling, they are doing many things, but they are they have big, deep historical roots, they have deep historical cultures, and they live those cultures. So for me, these are also categories in a way in which we think of futures and development. And I think that itself is a problem for me, because I think we are forced to think of them in a certain category, and I think they're not categories. So when I'm working with fishers, for example, I got led into firstly not only seeing how they are struggling with many kinds of changes, like the beach was being taken over by water, but also by tourists, but also by new ports which were changing the water flow, and the fish were being overfished. So it's not one challenge. They're facing a whole battery of challenges, and they also don't want to be fishing anymore because they feel there's no future in that. So there is also how this whole thing is shifting. But I also got introduced to their cultural roots to the sea, which took me back actually to ancient poetry of 300 BC, which had a lot of resonance about what the sea meant to them, in that poetry. And that's sort of a whole different onion. It's like peeling an onion that you go deeper and deeper. But it was, and in many cases when I'm working with these communities, they also need some kind of help which I can provide. Like I connect them to lawyers or connect them to. I was working with the forest community for a year, and I had to connect. They were being displaced, so I connected with the Supreme Court lawyers who then took the case up pro bono. So I see that some of these struggles are somewhere where I can contribute something. But in many places, it's hard to say that I'm actually taking something from them, I feel. So in the fishing community, the first time, one of the first times I showed the work was in a nearby space near the fishing community. And I also invited one of the main fisher person I was working with, to have a conversation with a marine biologist and who also spoke his language. So it was a public conversation. And it was very important for me because he came very well dressed. He wore his best clothes with his wife and children. For him to be recognized as somebody important was something which, and I think that this how people are downplayed into who they are. It's like making them invisible, how the people get invisible. So that's the first time I showed that work. And then, of course, the work traveled to gallery space and other places. But I maintain and this question of representation and ethics of this is a very complicated question. You can never fully resolve it. I always say I'm always in the struggle with that question. Because, of course, there is a structural difference. I come from much more enabled place than many of these people in terms of their futures in this particular political system we live in. But that doesn't mean that I'm better than them in a sense. But so that kind of, there's no way to override the structural differences for me. But I'm very honest and clear about them. It's not that I want to, I'm not what I am. This is what I am, and this is what I want to learn. So it's a constant question, and it's also a question of what kind of work you produce, how it circulates. These are all very important questions. What context is the work shown? To what degree can you control that? These are all questions. So hence, I always like, you need to write your own text, you need to say what the context of the work is, etc. But as I was saying a few minutes earlier, that I also look at community as a much wider thing. So I just talked about invisibility, and I see this invisibility as a political invisibility. So as you go down the ladder, the people on the ground become less and less visible. They become less people. They become just part of a number. And if you go further down, then the more than human don't exist. So who talks about the small fish, or who talks about the crab, or who talks about the dolphin, who talks about the vulture? There is this politics of invisibility, and I see it in this context of how we investigate the ideas of power, in a sense. So, and for me, as my questions have changed over time, my current question is, what is this relationship we have with the world outside of us, and what all is involved in that relationship? So, for example, the current work I'm doing on the Indo-Gangetic dolphin and the Indus dolphin is to see what complex relationships they are held with in terms of culture, in terms of nature, in terms of science. So it's also that how these methods of knowing something become very exclusionary, become very complete in themselves, but they're not complete. They're just one sort of slot into with looking at something. And when you talk of the more than human, I'm always thinking about sentience. How we cannot understand the sentience of another being. We cannot. It's not possible. But so we only understand it from our perspective. And I think for me to decenter this perspective, decenter where other things exist, decentering the human as they come, is very much part of how I think about that when you think of relationships to this. So I want to be able to say these things because I think for me, the artistic practice is the most best way to say it, because because it goes beyond disciplinary boundaries. And as you just said a few minutes back, that when one enters there, one enters with everything one has, no, which is a part of an investigator, part of an anthropologist, part of an amateur economist, part of everything. But what questions guide me is what I'm interested in, and these questions are both a part of my research, but also how they have honed over time. Over time, what questions uh, I can contribute towards is important question for me. What can I say which helps something be different or help something uh, for better future? So this is something I always think about. What kind of understanding and conversation can I facilitate as an artist? What new perspective can I bring to people which help them think of things differently? Because I really believe that for looking at futures, we need to be think differently firstly, and we think differently, then we can change something differently. But if we don't start understanding and thinking differently, then it's very hard to think of outside of the trajectories we are locked in a sense. So so that sort of guides me in, and I'm really think that the landscapes that I visit are so rich with materials which are so rich in as places to learn something from, to learn with. So I'm curious, but I want to learn with what I see. And there's so much which I'm learning through this all the time.
All right, thank you. There are many things. So from what you said, I think what is quite important is that you maybe see your position as a kind of, I don't like this term, but a kind of mediator, because it's about linking. So maybe what you can, it's about, of course, an exchange between you and the community you work with. So what you can give also is about maybe helping them connecting with other organizations or other people. So in that sense, you are liaising. You are, as you said.
But I also see myself as somebody who's trying to recover what is lost, through the extractivist modes, historicalistic, what has been lost or is being lost. And so it's also about bringing that to the surface, bringing that uh, to a more aware plane, because these are entanglements which are not seen anymore. They're not even valued anymore. So what does this question which I constantly confront in Europe, that we have to bring culture back to our agriculture, and I said it's a wrong question, because in where I come from, there's no difference between culture and agriculture, because agriculture and it's about prosperity, it's about harvesting, it's culture is part of that. So these separations, which are actually false separations, which we bought into the commodification of everything, complete commodification of nature, and then of human beings, because human beings are just part of workforce now. So when I talked about labor as poor people, they are only seen as workforce, not as people. So they're part of a larger workforce. So of course, there's a whole political way in which justice is served. It's also a question of who needs the justice. We cannot ignore the fact that people who don't matter, there's no justice served there. No? So their voice is also not heard at all. We don't even know the language through which to understand that. So the erasures are so deep, and I think it is a lot of work to understand this first before you say what is it that we're trying to recover. Because I really fear that this extractivist mode has no future. for human society.
Just to raise this question, even though I think I know the answer, but when you talk about political invisibility, who will talk about them if artists don't? Why not journalists? I mean, this should be the role of journalists.
I think journalists do also do it, but we can increasingly see that journalism has become, in a practical sense, very difficult profession, because firstly it's completely underfunded now for the kind of thing required, and many of the media people who are working, they don't have any ground presence anymore. So there is very little reporting going on in journalism. There's a lot of stories which are, but and also they are not, they're also politically not encouraged to say these stories, because they become stories of despair. And many places, journalists are not free to speak. They are told what to say, or if they say something else, they will not exist as journalists. So of course, journalists have always done this. I mean, my first work on labor, with that book on labor, is looking at it's a documentation project. You can call it. I won't call it journalistic, but it is a documentation. But it's difficult to even show or bring it out or publish that kind of work. So there is whole repression right now going on in many countries in the world, where these things are not being told, because there's a belief that this will pass, that somehow we will all be in the future. And so there is a kind of acceptance of the idea that the poor are not required to survive as poor. There's something wrong with it. And I know of journalists here who report on community stories or community resistance. They're not allowed to report them. I mean, the editor will not report them, or they sometimes do it on YouTube or something. But it's really become difficult to be a grounded, critical journalist.
Yeah, sure. I think I will ask in a few minutes Jiandyin, because I guess this is something they know quite a lot about, and they've been doing works and investigation into very sensitive topics that maybe only artists can really go through. But just to finish with one remark for you, Ravi, you talk about to learn with and about this idea of knowledge, but is it also, so learning for you would be like to be immersed within these communities. So it's also a way to question our ways to learn by just I remember when you've been investigating with about this fisherman community, you were also fishing yourself. So as a way to feel things, to develop this awareness that maybe we cannot develop with our rational mode of thinking.
I think learning has become very knowledge-based, in a sense, that with not experience is not part of a learning, in a sense. And I think it's very complicated how we learn things and how we do not learn things. So, this is a thing which I say very often to many people, that, that we always talk about climate change and saying we have to create awareness about climate change. I think it's a wrong approach, because when I talk to the fishing community, they can describe what climate change means to you. They can. So they have knowledge about what's changing, maybe not on your terminology of what you think is climate change, but we never ask. They're not our part of our expert group. We don't think they're important. We think knowledge has to be given to them. We think we have to teach them something. But I think this is not correct, because I think what they have to teach us is much more important. And they are observing everything. So, I edited a book on climate change a couple of years back, and it was about these landscapes, that people who live in landscapes, how do they observe climate change? Not about an IPCC report, because that's why we are so distant from what's going on around us. All these things become abstract questions. They're not real questions for us. But if we talk to a construction laborer across the street, working, near my house right now, he will tell you what heat really means. No, heat is not just temperature, not degrees. Heat is a bodily experience. How do you survive in that heat? I think this makes so abstract everything, so abstract. I think, and I think the way we think of systems, the way we think of politics, the way we think of even these global negotiations, it is just abstract words which we have no investment in. But people who are living there on the ground have real investment. This is their life. They know about this. So I think we have made learning to be something else, in a sense, than what it really should be. I'm not saying it should not be that. I'm not saying science is not important, but it's only one of the ways in which we learn something. So.
Yeah, true. And I think what we have to learn is to learn how to learn in a different way. And obviously, all these community-based experiences, they help you to gather this experience and to expand your tools somehow. That allow you to reach the world and understand more all about this. And it's also a question of language, but I think maybe it will lead us too far. So let me go back to Ji and Yin on this question of the role of artists and why. It's important for you to root your practice within communities that are maybe invisible or that needs to be empowered in a way or another.
I think we're quite interested in actual experience. That the artists perceive in the community. So it's about human and human, and also what we can learn.
Non-human.
And non-human, of course, yeah. And then what we can learn from community, what they transmit to us, what is the energy that they transmit to us. So we don't look for facts, but it's about the knowledge. We experience many times new knowledge when we access to new community, or even the same model study that we work for long term. We still find new knowledge. And so also, before I forget about what you were discussing, I think also artists has the artists address also statement through their art. So there's different way of addressing the statement. So in the case of artists, we address certain statements, certain knowledge in a different visual language. So we think that it's all about create understanding. So it's like scientists or economists, they also have their way of create the understanding. But for artists, we use the another kind of dimension of the visual language. So this is what I would like to feedback about the previous discussion. In terms of the our development, yeah, because maybe it's our post studio way of working and the practice that always brought us to people, and then to cooperate with various area of people, and it has brought us to their knowledge that is like outside the boundary of visual art. Yeah, we talk about this, the outside the boundary of the visual art. So they are like knowledge from different communities. The first impact in our early period of artist career, yeah, we work with the kite makers and the boat specialists. So that was our turn, that we found that there are a lot of things that we can learn from yeah, from others. And then and so then after that we started to work with people, and we explore ways of living of people from various fields. And then we also work with different fields, different area of specialists. So what we realized is that the visual art frontier does not limit. So, and then also we always enjoy learning new things, and we also kind of always find it's fascinating to see new invention in other fields. So that's how it comes to our expansion in the community-based work. And then also in the past 10 years that we have been working with people under different contexts, we as a couple artists, I think it's also kind of help us dealing with different case. So for example, working with under the loophole, or under the authorities system. So between us as a collective, I think we kind of share the mixture of the mood and tone between us in confronting with a diverse situation. So, but then always it's about challenge when we confront with the unpredictable situation and the unknown result. So yeah, I think we have we also agree with Ravi in the way that new things always keep us learning and then light our interest.
Yes, I can add, like, the people out there, they know more than us, because they learn nature surroundings by their body. So the body itself as the how can I say, as the process that the knowledge come through their mind. and the people out there is more mature than us, being to be a collaborate with us. For example, like we work with the fishermen people who have to take care of us. Being a while, we taking a video in the mid of the ocean. So without them, we may lost uh, doing a shooting. They saved us. They told us that what we should do and what we should not do. So this kind of thing that we have to listen, because in the arts college we never learn about it. Yeah, and some people told us like our works always come across to more than just a visual art, but life. So we kind of try to demolish the boundary between visual art and life. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of the materials, when you kind of do the when you are a research based practice, we also kind of want to focus on the information that narrate by the source. So there's no one fact. We want to work on what we heard from them, and then we digest and rearrange with other materials that we search along the way. So it's not just about what we perceive from the source, but it's also about the other materials that we can collect in other perspective. For example, in the case of Go Niaw, the cocoa plantation and its history has brought us to a wider community situation. Yeah.
Okay, it's almost 4:30, so maybe if you have something to add, either Ravi or Ji or Yin, and otherwise we're going to open maybe to questions. Anything you'd like to add, or if you want to react to what Ji and Yin have just said, Ravi?
No, it's actually, I just want to say, I was very, it was very nice to hear what they were saying, because, also the way they bring technology in is very interesting. I'd like to know more about it at some point. But also, when you ask the question about journalists, artists also are able to bring out things in a way in which it connects to people differently. It's not about just giving information. Art is not information. Art is almost a connection, a reaction. It's more visceral in a sense. So it creates when you think of complex issues, then it makes you understand complex issue at a bodily level, at experiential level. I think that is always the challenge for the artist. It's not visual design and it's not journalism. It is a different mode of something. So that's why, as an artist, I'm always challenged. I don't know if I'll succeed or not succeed. It's because I don't know. I mean, it's not about what I did earlier, what I'm doing now. So I think that also keeps me really challenged and interesting. The challenge is really what keeps me engaged. So that's that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, this is specifically true today. I think knowledge, information is everywhere. It's accessible for everybody. So yeah, so it's not anymore about that. It's beyond that, right? Yeah. You wanted to react, G? I can see.
No.
No? So thanks a lot for all these ideas and so sharing your thoughts. So let me ask maybe if there are some questions among the people who are online with us. I don't know how I'm going to see that, but
we will monitor the questions, should there be any, and we'll let you know if there are any questions.
thank you.
Mm.
เอารูปนั้นลง
Hi, yes, Caroline, Jiandyin, and also Ravi. It appears that there's no incoming questions from the audience. So should you want to share some more, maybe we can have like 10 more minutes to wrap up the talk, or you would like to wrap it up now, then it's okay as well. Please just let us know. And we'll pass the mic back to the curator and the moderator of this talk.
I think we can share some more images that we prepare just in case the question come to some to our previous work. So
this image can explain that house.
Yeah, please do. Yes, feel free. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So do you see our screen?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so I guess this would be perhaps interesting, just in case some audiences can see a picture of artists working
in the public.
in the public. Yeah.
This is the platform that we designed for our project. This is ongoing project called Dialoguing and Being, begin in 2010. This is, as you see, it's just a simple drawing back size and font size of the people who participate.
Mm-hmm.
So the beginnings, all of them are they're passing by, and then the next step they will become an audience, and after audience they become a participant. So only 10 minutes or 15 minutes of drawing a portrait, they got the font portraits back home for free. And after this process, we asked them a contact by email or Facebook or so on. And after a while, we asked them to visit their home to ask things where they put
The
portraits that we draw
mm-hmm.
in which
their
room,
home.
in their
Mm-hmm.
home. And that's the tricks, or is that the question that how we can go to their life or to their house?
How to access, right?
To access,
mm-hmm.
yeah, to their life. And this is quite interesting because the size trick that we choose and the people that we went their home is connected somehow. And Yeah, and some of them still today we are still being connected.
Keeping the friendship.
Yeah, have the relationships until now. Yeah.
Yep.
But maybe just to make it clear, so from there, so you go to their place, you look at where they put the portrait, and what do you do with that? I guess you're going to discuss with them. Do you record? Do you take notes? Do you take photographs? Or it's just like for you, again, to learn from them, and you don't do any specific thing from all this?
Yeah, just take photos where they put the portraits on. And of course, while we're there, they give us the tea, food, or dinner, talk, and yeah, it's kind of having a moment together, much more than we used to have in the public. Yeah, we blur the public and the private space to become one through this process. Yeah.
And so we have one series of the photo in their living space. Yeah.
But what is also great is that maybe you don't do anything specific from what you will learn during that moment. And so that's also, I guess, the magic of it. So because otherwise, one of the critic could be like the artists keep like trying to use everything they can from these type of encounters. So that's obviously one perspective, which is very critical. So this is not your case.
No, yeah, I think what we did only taking photo where they put the portrait that we drew for them in their living space. Yeah. And just share the moment with them.
Nice.
To know them more.
Cool. That's very interesting. Thank you. Yeah. Ravi, do you want to add something before we?
Oh yeah, I would like to add, because this project in different country, the outcome is different way, different thing. Because some, for example, like in South Korea, everyone who we draw, we will ask them why the South and North Korea was divided. Yeah, that's what we want to know. So different context of place and space that we.
So adding some different approach. Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Interesting. Do you also, Ravi, do you also like, get
I'm
to...
okay.
You okay? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, thanks a lot again for joining. Thank you for being part of the exhibition. And so let's keep in touch. For the audience to know that the show will continue to tour in Hong Kong in fall, and then Indonesia, hopefully in the Philippines. Also, each time we're going to try to reflect on the specific context where the show will be organized. Thank you for the Nguyen Art Foundation for having us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Caroline and Ravi and Jiandyin as well. It was great, and whoever couldn't catch this talk, we will have recorded it and we will add subtitles so you can access it on YouTube.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.